At cold night air she pushed past the tall grasses, her breath shaking. Behind her, the river roared not violently, not like a flood but like something breathing. Amara, the voice called from the water. She stopped. Not because she wanted to. Because her body refused to go any farther. The river shimmered under the moonlight. Come. Too come. You cannot run from what was promised. Her chest tightened. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she did not scream. She only whispered, I didn't promise you anything. The water rippled in slow circles. Your mother did. The scene faded into memory. Years earlier, Amara had stood beside that same river, only she had been small then, her fingers wrapped around her mother's wrapper. Hold the calabash carefully, her mother had said softly. Don't let it fall into the water. I won't, Mama. Her mother's name was Ezin, and there was always a quiet sadness behind her eyes. The villagers used to whisper when she passed. Some pitied her. Some mocked her. For 7 years of marriage, she had not conceived. Until the river. But Amara did not know that part yet. As a child, she loved the water. She would sit by the bank and hum to herself. Sometimes she would dip her feet in, giggling. Don't go too deep, her mother would warn, her voice sharp with fear. Never past your ankles. Why, Mama? The water likes me. Ezin would stiffen whenever she said that. Water does not like people, she would reply quickly. Water takes people. But sometimes, late at night, when rain tapped against the roof, Amara would wake and find her mother sitting upright on the mat, staring into nothing. Mama. Yes, my child. Why are you crying? I am not crying. But her voice always trembled. When Amara turned 7, something happened that the village never forgot. She had gone missing. The women were pounding yam when someone shouted her name. The children said she had gone toward the river alone. Ezin dropped the pestle and ran barefoot, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear herself think. She reached the bank and froze. Amara was in the middle of the river. Floating. Not struggling. Not drowning. Just floating, as if the water were holding her. Amara. Ezin screamed. The child slowly opened her eyes and smiled. Mama, she said I shouldn't be afraid. Ezin waded in without thinking, pulling her daughter to her chest. Who said that? Who spoke to you? The beautiful woman, Amara answered calmly. She has long hair. She shines. Ezin's knees nearly gave out. That evening, the elders came. They sat under the big udala tree, their voices low but heavy. The oldest among them cleared his throat. Ezin, there are stories. I don't want to hear stories, she snapped, her fingers gripping her wrapper tightly. There are promises, the elder continued. Old promises. Her silence confirmed everything. One of the women whispered, You went to the shrine, didn't you? Ezin closed her eyes. Yes. The air seemed to grow still. I had no child. I had no hope, she said, her voice breaking. I went to the river priest. I was desperate. And what did you offer? The elder asked gently. Her lips trembled before the words came out. My first child. A murmur spread through the gathering. You pledged the child to the river spirit, someone asked in disbelief. I thought, her voice cracked. I thought I would find a way to break it later. You do not break covenants with spirits, the elder said firmly. You fulfill them. Inside the hut, Amara listened, confused. She did not understand the weight of those words. She only knew that her mother held her tighter that night. Years passed, but the village never forgot. As Amara grew into a young woman, the connection deepened. Whenever she fetched water, the surface would ripple toward her feet. Whenever she cried, rain followed. Whenever she laughed near the river, the current softened. One evening, she sat beside her friend Ifinanya, braiding her hair. "Do you ever feel like you don't belong here?" Amara asked quietly. "If you don't belong here, then where do you belong?" Ifinanya teased. "I don't know." She stared toward the river in the distance. "Sometimes I feel like something is waiting for me." Ifinanya stopped braiding. "You talk strangely these days. Do you ever hear voices when it's quiet?" Her friend pulled her hand away. "Don't say such things." But Amara wasn't joking. At night, she heard whispers. Not frightening. Not angry. Just patient. "Soon," the voice would say. Soon. On her 18th birthday, the dreams began. She stood beneath the river, yet she could breathe. There was light everywhere. A woman stood before her, tall, radiant, as deep as the water itself. "You have grown beautifully," the woman said. "Who are you?" "You know who I am." Amara woke up trembling. Across the room, her mother was already awake. "You saw her," Ezin said quietly. It wasn't a question. Amara sat up slowly. "Mama, who is she?" Ezin's shoulders sagged as if years had suddenly landed upon them. "She is the one who answered my prayers." Silence filled the hut. "What did you promise?" Amara asked. Her mother's eyes filled instantly. "I promised what was not mine to give." The truth came slowly, painfully, like pulling a thorn buried too deep. "I was going to lose your father," Ezin whispered. "His family said he would marry another woman. They said I was barren. I went to the shrine. I begged the river for a child. I said if she gave me one, the child would belong to her." Amara's breathing grew shallow. "You promised me." "I was desperate." Ezin cried. "I did not think she would truly come for you." The room felt smaller. "She has been protecting you," her mother continued through tears. "Every time you almost drowned, every time sickness passed over you, it was her." "Protecting me for what?" Amara's voice cracked. Ezin looked at her daughter as if memorizing her face. "To claim you." Amara stood abruptly. "I am not an offering." "I know." "I am not a goat tied to a tree." "I know." "Then break it," she shouted. Ezin's tears fell freely. "I don't know how." That night, Amara walked to the river alone for the first time without fear. The water shimmered. "I didn't choose this," she said aloud. The surface rippled gently. "You were chosen before you were born. I have a life here. And you have a life there." She clenched her fist. "What do you want from me?" A pause. Then softly. "What was promised?" If this story is pulling you in, pause for a moment and let us know in the comments what you think Amara should do. And if you're feeling the emotion of this journey already, don't forget to like the video so more people can find this story. Amara stood by the river long after the voice faded. Behind her, unseen, her mother watched, her heart breaking with every passing second. The next morning, Amara refused to speak. She sat outside the hut, peeling cassava in slow, deliberate movements, her face unreadable. Ezin watched her from the doorway, wanting to speak, afraid to. Finally, Amara broke the silence. "How long did you plan to hide it from me?" Ezin swallowed. "Until I found a way to fix it." "And did you?" "No." The word hung between them like smoke. Amara dropped the knife. "So all these years, when I almost drowned, when I heard voices, you knew." "I prayed it would pass," her mother whispered. "I hoped the spirit would forget." "The river doesn't forget," Amara replied softly. Later that afternoon, Ifinanya came running into the compound, breathless. "Amara. The elders are calling your mother." Ezin stiffened. "They say the river has risen again." Amara stood immediately. "Risen?" It swallowed part of the farmland, Ifunanya said nervously. People are afraid. At the Udala tree, the elders were already gathered. This has happened 3 nights in a row, one of them said gravely. The river climbs without rain. Another turned to Ezin. You know why? Ezin bowed her head. Amara stepped forward. Stop speaking around me. Speak to me. The oldest elder looked at her carefully. Child, a covenant delayed becomes a debt increased. Are you saying the river is angry? She asked. It is waiting, he replied. For me? Yes. Silence fell. Amara's voice was steady, but her eyes shone with emotion. And if I refuse? The elder's gaze softened. Spirits do not force. But they collect. That night, Ezin sat beside her daughter. I will not let you go, she said firmly. You cannot fight a river with your hands, Amara replied. I will give myself instead. Amara turned sharply. Don't say that. If a life was promised, then let it take mine. Mama, stop. Her voice cracked. You don't fix one wrong with another. Ezin reached for her hands. You are my answered prayer. And I am not a mistake, Amara whispered. Tears rolled down both their faces. The following day, a man named Chak arrived from a neighboring village. He was known for praying for people and breaking spiritual burdens. Word had reached him of the strange flooding. Inside the hut, he listened quietly as Ezin spoke. You made a vow, Chak said calmly. Yes. Did you pour libation? Did you seal it with blood? Ezin nodded faintly. Chak sighed. Then it was not a careless word. It was an agreement. Amara stepped forward. Can it be broken? He looked at her with compassion. Anything can be broken. But something will replace it. What does that mean? She asked. It means freedom always costs something. Ezin's hands trembled. Take mine. No, Amara said quickly. Chak raised a hand gently. Let us not rush. Tonight, we will pray. That evening, they gathered near the riverbank. A small lantern burned between them. Chak began to pray softly. His voice was steady, not loud, not dramatic. Amara closed her eyes. The air grew colder. The water shifted. Why do you interfere? A voice echoed softly across the surface. Chak did not stop praying. Amara opened her eyes slowly. The figure stood within the water again, luminous, calm, almost sorrowful. I have not harmed her, the spirit said. I have guarded her. Ezin fell to her knees. I was foolish. I was desperate. You were hurt, the spirit replied. And your womb opened. Chak spoke gently. She asks for mercy. The spirit's gaze moved to Amara. Do you wish to leave what was prepared for you? Amara's throat tightened. Prepared. There is a place beneath the waters, the spirit said softly. A world without sickness. Without hunger. Without betrayal. You would not suffer. I have people here, Amara replied, her voice shaking. They will age, the spirit answered calmly. They will die. Tears slipped down Amara's face. So will I. Yes. But that is life. Silence. The spirit studied her with something that looked almost like admiration. You are not afraid of me, it observed. I am afraid, Amara whispered. But I am not yours. The water trembled gently. The promise was made. Not by me. Ezin crawled forward, sobbing. Take me instead. The spirit's voice deepened slightly. The agreement named the first fruit of your womb. Amara grabbed her mother. Stop offering yourself. Chak's voice grew firmer in prayer. The wind picked up slightly, but there was no violent storm, no chaos, only tension, heavy and quiet. The spirit turned its gaze toward the horizon. I do not seek to destroy, it said softly. I seek to complete. Complete what? Amara asked. What was started? Amara stepped closer to the edge of the water. Then hear me, she said, her voice trembling but strong. I am grateful you protected me. I am grateful my mother's womb opened. But I am not a repayment. The spirit's glow flickered slightly. I choose my life, Amara continued. Even if it is short. Even if it is painful. I choose to belong where I was raised. Ezin held her breath. The spirit was quiet for a long moment. You choose uncertainty over eternity. Yes. You choose weakness over power. Yes. You choose grief? Amara's voice broke, but she nodded. Yes. The river slowly calmed. The glow dimmed slightly. You are unlike others, the spirit said softly. Most beg to escape the suffering of men. I am not most, Amara replied. Silence stretched again. Then the spirit spoke one final time. The covenant weakens when the heart that was promised refuses willingly. Ezin gasped. But, the spirit continued, gratitude must replace debt. Chike stopped praying and looked up carefully. What must she do? He asked. The spirit's gaze rested on Amara. Live well. The water slowly returned to stillness. The glow faded. The night became ordinary again. For several seconds, none of them moved. Ezin reached for her daughter's face. Is it over? Amara stared at the river. I don't know. Chike stood slowly. Some covenants dissolve not with sacrifice, but with truth. Ezin began to weep, not out of fear this time, but relief. Amara held her mother tightly. As they walked back toward the village, the river remained quiet behind them. If this moment moved you, take a second to like this video. Stories like this remind us how powerful choices can be. And tell us in the comments, do you think the spirit truly let her go, or is it only silent for now? The next morning, the farmland was dry again. The villagers gathered at the bank, whispering. The water has returned to its place, someone said. The elder looked at Amara thoughtfully. What did you say to it? I chose, she replied simply. And for the first time in years, her mother's eyes held no shadow, only gratitude. The village did not celebrate. It watched. For days after that night, people moved carefully around Amara, as though she carried something fragile and invisible. Some believed she had been spared. Others believed the river was only patient. Ezin refused to let her daughter out of sight. Eat, she would say, placing food in front of her. I'm not a child, Amara replied gently. You are my child. That answer always ended the conversation. One evening, as the sun stretched gold across the sky, Amara sat outside grinding pepper. Her father, Obina, finally spoke about what had happened. He had been mostly silent through everything. A quiet man. A man who loved deeply but spoke little. Why didn't you tell me? He asked Ezin. Ezin's hands trembled slightly. I was ashamed. You thought I would take another wife? They told me you would. Obina sighed heavily. I married you. Not your womb. Ezin's eyes filled again. I was afraid. You should have been afraid of silence, not of me, he replied softly. Amara watched them both, her chest tight. So all of this began because of fear? Yes, Ezin whispered. Obina turned to his daughter. And it ended because of courage. Amara looked down. I don't feel courageous. You stood before what others fear to name, he said quietly. That is courage. That night, there was no voice from the river. No whisper. No dream. Only sleep. The first peaceful sleep she could remember. Days turned into a week. Then 2. Life slowly returned to normal rhythms, women laughing at the stream, children splashing near the bank, farmers working their land without watching the water anxiously. But Amara noticed something inside herself had changed. She no longer felt pulled toward the river. She felt grounded. One afternoon, Ifunanya walked with her toward the market. "Are you sure it's over?" her friend asked cautiously. "I don't know," Amara replied honestly. "But I am not afraid anymore." Ifunanya studied her face. "You look different." "Different how?" "Like someone who has seen something most of us never will." Amara smiled faintly. "Maybe I have." They walked in silence for a moment. "If it had asked you again," Ifunanya said softly, "would you have gone?" Amara stopped walking. "I don't think it wanted to trap me," she said after a pause. "I think it wanted to be chosen." "And you didn't choose it?" "No." "Why?" Amara's eyes grew thoughtful. "Because love that demands surrender without consent is not love." Ifunanya blinked. "You speak like an elder now." Amara laughed lightly for the first time in days. Back at home, Ezin was preparing soup when she suddenly dropped a spoon. The air shifted. Not violently. Not cold. Just different. She turned slowly toward the doorway. Amara stood there. "Mama." Ezin exhaled shakily. "I thought I felt something." Amara stepped closer. "I did too." They both turned toward the direction of the river. Silence. Then nothing. Ezin closed her eyes. "It is only memory." Amara nodded slowly. "Yes." That night, she sat outside alone, staring at the sky. "Are you there?" she asked quietly, not expecting an answer. The river reflected the moon calmly. No voice came. She waited. Still nothing. After a long moment, she whispered, "Thank you." A soft breeze brushed against her face. Gentle. Not possessive. Not demanding. Just present. And then it passed. The next morning, the oldest elder came to their compound. He sat carefully on the wooden stool and studied Amara. "The river has not risen," he said. "No," she replied. "The dreams. They have stopped." He nodded slowly. "Then the covenant has thinned." "Thinned?" Ezin asked nervously. "When a promise is met with honesty rather than fear, spirits lose their grip," he explained. Amara looked at him curiously. "Why didn't anyone tell my mother that?" The elder sighed. "Because most people who make desperate promises do not raise children brave enough to confront them." Ezin lowered her head. The elder stood to leave, then paused. "Child, remember this. You were never owned. You were only expected." Amara absorbed those words carefully. Never owned. Only expected. That evening, the family shared a quiet meal. No tension. No whispered fears. Just conversation. Obine cleared his throat. "There is something I must say." Ezin looked up immediately. "I allowed fear to grow in this house without noticing," he said. "I should have defended you better." Ezin shook her head. "It was my decision." "But it was my silence," he replied. Amara reached for both their hands. "We all chose fear at some point." "And now?" her father asked. "Now we choose differently." He squeezed her hand gently. Weeks later, life felt ordinary again. But ordinary no longer felt small. Amara began helping children learn to read under the udala tree. She laughed more. She slept peacefully. She fetched water without hesitation. One afternoon, as she filled her pot, the surface rippled lightly. Her breath caught. She waited. Nothing followed. No voice. No glow. Just the normal movement of water. She smiled. "I am grateful," she said softly. The river flowed on. If you have stayed with this story until now, you understand something important. Sometimes the greatest battles are quiet ones. If this touched you in any way, don't forget to like this video so more people can hear it. Share your thoughts below. Would you have made the same choice Amara did? That evening, as the sun dipped low, Ezin sat beside her daughter once more. "I am sorry," she said softly. Amara leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. "You gave me life. I almost gave you away. But you also fought for me." Ezin's voice trembled. "I was selfish. You were human." They sat in silence, watching the river shimmer peacefully. After a long pause, Ezin whispered, "Do you resent me?" Amara considered the question carefully. "No," she said at last. "Because if you had not gone to that river, I would not be here at all." Tears slipped down Ezin's cheeks. "I thought I was bargaining with a spirit," she confessed. "But I was bargaining with my own fear." Amara nodded gently. "And fear always overcharges." Ezin laughed softly through tears. "Where did you learn to speak like that?" Amara smiled. "From surviving." Night settled quietly over the village. No thunder. No calling voices. Just crickets and distant laughter from neighboring compounds. Amara looked toward the river one last time before going inside. For a moment, just a moment, the surface reflected the moon in a way that felt almost like a smile. Not possessive. Not claiming. Just acknowledging. And then it was gone. She turned away without fear. Inside the hut, her family waited. Her life waited. And this time, it belonged completely to her. If this story stayed with you, take a moment right now to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more emotional journeys like this one. Like the video if it moved you, and tell us in the comments, do you believe promises made in desperation should always be honored, or can courage rewrite destiny? The river continued to flow. But it no longer held her name.